But yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be fucking great because of the progression. And you know, that's the thing. That's what drove me. Well, that's what made Quake speedrunning so torturous. Is the repetition, and that it just feels like coming up against a brick wall constantly, just reset after reset. Granted, I was talking with Brain Fluid about this the other day. We're both definitely reset heavy runners, and it's not a good habit. You've got to get out of that perfectionist mindset. You know, sometimes I'd be coming out of episode 2, be like 2 seconds behind, and I would just reset. I could still PB on that run easily. I watched my PB back the other day. There's so many easy time saves in later episodes. I could be like 10 seconds behind coming out of episode 2 and still PB. I wouldn't be happy with the PB. But you gotta let go of all of that. You gotta let go of all of that, you know, and just fucking play Quake, you know. And I'm sure I'll probably make a return to Quake one day. I don't think it's over yet, but now is not the time, because when I was watching my PB the other day, the what was it, 12:43, I think is my time. Yeah, don't worry. So, it would be a PB, exactly. It would be a PB of shame. So I was watching my PB the other day, and all I could see was the mistakes. It's like the problem is when something goes right, when everything goes perfectly, it almost doesn't register. It's like, well, that's just how it was meant to happen. It's kind of like watching water flow through a stream. It's almost like nothing's happening because it's so perfect. You know, I experienced that with like a lot of drummers that I listen to and things. It's like they're playing so well that it's like nothing's even happening because it's all just perfect. You know, it's like you got like these big fucking ride cymbals and all this stuff in between, but all that stuff in between, it's like it doesn't even exist. It's just the ride cymbals, and everything else is just like, I don't know. I don't know how to fully articulate it, but all I see is the mistakes. And I felt that same sensation that drove me to play Quake for 12 hours a day for a year and a half. You know, I've felt that same like fire in my stomach, you know, where I was like fire in my belly, where I was like, oh, I can improve this. I can improve this. I can do better. And I had to stop myself and think like, is it really the right time to play just because I can improve? Or should I wait until I'm ready to play for fun again? Like those first few months before I became, you know, I don't know, before I was driven mad by Quake speedrunning. Those first few months of Quake where I was like, it was so fresh and the game was so fucking incredible. That I was like in love with it constantly. But then by the end, it was like this grind. It was just torturous. Every fiber of my being wanted to just give up and just fucking throw the computer out the window and never look at the game again. And it was just months of forcing myself, get up in the morning, get ready, sit down at the computer, play 12 hours of Quake, go to sleep, get up, play 12 hours, and just forcing myself to go and go and go just because I knew I was capable of something. Just because you're capable of it doesn't mean you have to fucking torture yourself for a year trying to. It's ridiculous. If you've stopped having fun, let go of whatever ridiculous idea about having to achieve this goal or whatever it is. Just let it go. It's become harmful at a certain point, and I think it's, you know, people tell me that I've never met another person who can actually sit down and focus on something for 12 hours and just do that 100% focus constantly, you know, redlining, never you know, unflinching, unwavering, just sheer willpower, you know. So in a way it's a great like attribute, it's a great characteristic or a positive a positive aspect of myself to a degree, but you've got to strike that balance, and you've got to know when to back off and when you're just fucking killing yourself for no reason. Because when you get there, you know, when you're a sub 13 Quake speedrunner, and I would say arguably the best or one of the best speedrunners in the country, nothing changes. I'm still exactly where I was before. Nothing changed. It doesn't make any difference. It was great that I was able to go to the European Speedrunner Assembly, participate in the marathon. Unfortunately, I didn't ever get to submit a run. I went in 17, went to 17, and I think I did probably did some commentary on the Quake run or something. I can't remember exactly. No, I wasn't. I was on the couch. I wasn't on stream at all in 17. I was just on the couch for the Quake run. I didn't give commentary. But I was there, supporting the runners. Obviously, I was practicing with them, hanging out, having a good time. And the idea was to go to 17 and actually see what a speedrunning event is like and meet the other Quakers. And that was amazing. I've never experienced anything quite like that sensation of meeting the other Quake speedrunners. It was like a brotherhood. It was like a family. It was like, oh, it's like we've all been through the same grinder, you know? We've all been through the same thing. So we're so, like, we have such common ground, and we all have this same skill set. We're all different slightly, but we all have this same skill set, and we all know how hard it is to develop those skills. And so we all respect each other as equals, or, well, we know someone has a better time than someone else, but we all have that respect for one another. And it feels so amazing to have like a group of guys who are like, come on, get this co-op world record with us or something. And I can remember, I think it was Prasco or someone said, like, we were doing one run. I can't remember what map it was even, but he was like, okay, Flames, you go first because you're the fastest. And I was like, fuck yeah, dude. It was so good to just be recognized by another legend in the scene. He was like, you go first, you're the fastest. I was like, fuck yeah, dude. That is like, I've never had such respect from another human being. It was amazing. It was really cool, you know. And it's only, no one else could possibly understand it. I tell people like, oh yeah, I just fucking tortured myself learning this video game for a year and a half, like every day, just grinding. Like the E4 M1 circle drop, I must have spent hundreds of hours repeating that circle drop alone. Just sat there for fucking hours trying to do it 10 times in a row, trying to do it 15 times in a row, trying to do it 20 times in a row. Oh, you make one mistake, start from 0 again. Just, it's insane the level of dedication that it requires, and nobody gets that. They look at you like you're a fucking freak when you tell them that's what you've done with your life, you know. But it's God, it is something. It's certainly something that I was able to push myself to those extremes and achieve what I did, you know. And I still think I can go further, and that's why I do think probably after a couple of years of Classic or something, I'll be back to Quake, and I'll be back because I want to play again, because it's going to be fun. It's not going to be endless resets. It's not going to be this perfectionism. It's going to be probably something like no reset runs, and I'm going to try and let go of all of my, you know, all of my expectations and just play Quake. You know, people support the stream not because of my skill necessarily, not because of the time that I hold, or because of the goal that I've set for myself and that I'm going for. No, they support the stream just because I'm a guy who's playing Quake. I'm just keeping the Quake alive, and it doesn't take much more than that. You know, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself thinking I have to be one of the best. It's the only way that people will ever watch my stream, is if I have to be one of the best. People will, tons of people will show up for the streams, if you're just playing the game they like. You could have never played it before. That has entertainment value in itself. It all does. And that's a beautiful thing about streaming. And this has all been a massive learning process for me to realize that, and to realize things that, like, I can do the meditation streams. I can just sit here and talk to you guys. We can do this kind of thing. I would have never considered that before. I would have thought, like, everyone's going to leave the stream the minute that I do something that isn't just, you know, just hardcore fucking gaming, you know. But I realize it's been completely the opposite. The response to these streams, the reception has been incredible. I think I've received more followers, subscribers, people talking in chat, been way more active than it was at, like, the peak of my Quake speedrunning career or something. You know, so sometimes there would be weeks would go by and there wouldn't be a single follower. You know, like 10 hours a day of just grinding, 12 hours, whatever it was. Not a single follower, you know? And yet it turns out you can just hang out, have a good time, take the pressure off, you know? Just stop taking everything so seriously. That's, man. Yo, Break for Coffee, good to see you, dude. How's it going? I'm doing okay, man. Okay. You know, I just took myself and everything way too seriously. You know, to the point where it was like I was so stressed out and exhausted constantly that I was always on the back foot. I was always, like, run down. I was always stretched too thin, you know, and I couldn't find the enjoyment or the humor in anything. I was just literally endlessly torturing myself and saying, like, one day it's all gonna pay off. You've just got to fucking soldier on, dude. Just, you know, nose to the grindstone, never stop, never back down. And that's preposterous. You just can't do it. You certainly can't do it if you're actually trying to pursue a dream or a passion, because that is 1,000 times harder than just taking the easy way out. You know, a secure sort of life or whatever. And we all, doesn't matter what you do, we all do face hardship. That's unavoidable in life, certainly. But something like this, the way that I operate is that I want to be totally free and have full creative control, and I want to shoulder the responsibility for everything myself. I don't want to be in someone else's pocket, you know. I don't want to be selling my time. I have absolutely no interest in any of that. I would have a very hard time living with myself if that was how I lived. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So you got to understand, and you got to look at it way differently from how I was looking at it. I was like, the harder I work, the sooner that end goal gets here. No, it's about enjoying the process. It's all about the process. Fuck the end goal. It's great to have an intention. It's great to be driven. You know? Keep your eye on the prize. That is all great, but if that overwhelms you and you stop appreciating the moment and enjoying the journey and the process, you've already lost. It's over at that point. And it's a whoa. It's been a big lesson for me to learn how to stop. How to just stop and take it easy. I don't think I stopped for like 20 years straight there. Oh. That hit me like a truck, dude. What's new? Not much. We're getting ready for Classic WoW. Classic WoW launches in like 6 days. It's gonna be fucking hype. Still drumming. Doing a lot of drum practice recently. It's been about a year and 2 months since I got the kit. Seen a huge amount of progress. It's been incredible. I've gotten in contact with a musician recently, a guitarist who wants to start a little two-man project, a little duo, and play like alt rock and punk sort of stuff. So I'm learning to cover my first song, and it's called Out of the Black. I can't remember the name of the band right now. But so I've learned about 3/4 of the drum parts. I have like another drum fill and a couple of extra parts or something still left to learn. And then I've got to piece it all together and play the whole thing, and then bring it up to the right BPM and everything, and then memorize it. And this is all really cool because it's different. And I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying the challenge. I'm really enjoying the concepts that are being presented to me by learning other people's songs. And it also made me appreciate all of the work that I've done up to this point as well. There's certainly some stuff I'm trying to play left-hand lead on the hi-hat instead of crossing my hands over in order to strengthen and develop my left hand, because it's not... This hand is getting pretty good. This hand is lagging behind a bit, and it's because I was always playing up on the ride, and then I would cross over. So I'm uncrossing and playing like this now. So I'm trying to develop this hand, but then also learning this song. There's been a few things like rapid 30 seconds up on the hi-hat whilst coming down, putting the backbeat on the snare. Some of that, and an interesting little fill, which is like a triplet on the E. Well, it's a triplet, like fit into the space in between the two notes of the quarter note. You know what I'm saying? It's like I think it was popularized by John Bonham. So it's like you just have this, you just squeeze in this like little triplet fill in the middle of the beat kind of thing. I've never done that before, so that was kind of a new challenging thing. And but yeah, what I was trying to say is how much I appreciate all of the practice that I've done up to this point, because I'd sit down and I'd listen to one of these drum parts and I'd read the notation and I'd think, I can't do that, man, that's fucking hard like that. 10 minutes later I'm playing it flawlessly. So it's been amazing. It's been amazing to take a song that's played by a professional drummer, someone who actually, you know, makes a living doing this, and to find that I can actually play it. You know, I haven't got it fully memorized, can't play it all the way through yet, but I can play these drum parts, and it's been like, hell yeah, dude, it's working. You know, it's like it's the practice has kind of paid off to a certain degree. It's really cool, really cool. So I'm still like, my main interest is definitely jamming and improvisational music, improvising with other musicians and playing kind of spontaneously and being able to like adapt to any situation and that kind of thing. I'm not saying I'm good at that, but that's my preference, as opposed to playing a song the same way every time or something like that. But I'm open. I'm not closing myself off to say like, oh, I won't play this style, or I won't learn to cover songs. Or I'm trying to be as open as possible to any opportunities that I can take. I'm gonna try to. There's a few local venues where they do open mics and stuff, and sometimes there are jams that take place, and I want to try and, you know, meet some other musicians and say, do you have a drummer? Do you need a backup drummer? Whatever. Just try and get involved in some more jams, in some more bands and stuff. And so I'm trying to, you know, get myself out there. There's a music shop in town, but they're closed this month. They don't reopen until next month. But as soon as they do, I'm gonna drop by there, because they have a school upstairs as well. And so those guys will know all about music tutoring and stuff. So I'm gonna ask them about like uh, how you become a music tutor, and there'll be some process that I have to go through to be a sort of, I mean, I don't know if I would say certified, but I know I've got to get like cleared to be a tutor, you know, just to make sure I'm not like a psychopath or something, which is understandable. Um, but it's cool. You know, I had it in my head that you would have to play an instrument for like 20 years before you could possibly consider yourself good enough to tutor somebody. But no, you can play an instrument for a couple of years, and you've gotten good enough at the basics that you can introduce a beginner to the instrument and show them a lot of the core concepts and techniques that are really going to benefit them for their entire life, you know. So I realized that I do have quite a lot to offer, both musically and educationally, at this stage already, you know. And the trips are fantastic as always. You know, I took 800 mics for the first time recently, and it was amazing. It was just absolutely wonderful, you know. I was listening to the Grateful Dead. A couple of these performances, I think one was from 69, and the other might have been from 73. The era when they were touring with the Wall of Sound. And my god, dude, absolutely mind-blowing performances. Some of the best performances I've ever listened to. Just unbelievable. Like yeah, yeah, incredible. I can't even put it into words. I can't even express to you just how amazing it was. Oh yeah. Oh, it certainly was. Yeah. But we were just kind of talking about this yesterday, and this is one thing I will say why I have such respect for an experienced psychonaut. You know, some of these musicians who play this psychedelic music and stuff. It's like you know, I understand what it takes. I understand the years of devotion that they've put into their craft, and not just into that, but into their personal development, you know. Just take 400 mics of acid and try and do anything, let alone play an instrument like a master, you know. It took me years to get to the point where I could interact with another human being properly whilst in that headspace. It's like you become an infant again, and you have to relearn how to exist within this new paradigm or something. And so when I see these musicians who can perform flawlessly whilst, you know, just blast it out into the cosmos, it's incredible, because I know, like, how far they've gone, you know, how like uh um you know, I know that they've gone right to the other side. um and I can appreciate that, and it's incredibly inspiring, you know. It's inspiring, and it's incredible to see the transformation that I've gone through, you know. The fact that I can, like, operate normally, like I can go about my day, I can practice my drums, I can interact with people like a normal human being whilst in that state of awareness. I'm not just being overwhelmed by the contents of my own mind and having huge emotional breakdowns and these big epiphanies and such that are totally, like, just too overwhelming for me. You know, the Grateful Dead talked about it as well. In the beginning, in the early years, the formation of the band, they played the acid tests over some months or years, which was these shows where they would just have a barrel of acid. Well, it was a barrel of water in the middle of the room, and then they would put this powdered acid in it, and everyone would have like a little thimble cup, and you just take as much acid as you want. And it went from like 60, 70 people at the first show. 3 weeks later, they had like thousands of people showing up for these shows, just a runaway train, you know. And the Dead were talking about how, like, you know, this was the first time that they'd experienced acid, and this was back when they were called the Warlocks too. and they would get up on stage, play for 5 minutes, and then they would just have to stop and sit down because things are getting really fucking strange. And that is so cool, that creative freedom, that environment, that sort of organic environment where the band and everyone is participating, you know, consuming the sacrament, and that the band can just be like, I'm getting off stage, I don't know what's going on right now. Oh my god. But yes, you can, I can definitely tell, like, I'm not sure how to explain it exactly, but this incredible psychedelic music, like listening to Charlie Hunter, uh, listening to Jerry Garcia, listening to My Sleeping Karma, you know, listening to Mario Rubalaka, I think is how it's pronounced, of Earthless, you know, listening to all these guys, like, you can tell that they've gone all the way and they've brought it back, you know, or they're literally like expressing the spiritual experience, or that well, they're expressing themselves through the music, but they're on such a high level of awareness, they're so in tune that it's like, it's just overwhelming. It's like there's those moments where it's like, oh my god, they've thought of everything, or even more than that, it's like, oh my god, they can do anything. They've achieved total musical freedom where they can do anything, and every member of the band is perfectly telepathically linked to everyone else, and they're all moving in perfect harmony and unison, you know. That's that, like, that boundary dissolving experience where it's almost like all of the members of the band become one collective consciousness, you know? Yeah, absolutely. I love mushrooms. Um, that they're definitely less common. Uh, I'd say I use I use LSD the most, but I do really love to use mushrooms whenever I have the opportunity, especially if they're fresh truffles. That's always incredible. Yeah. I mean, the mushrooms saved my life, though, and I've told that story numerous times. That the first heroic dose that I ever did, the first psychedelic experience I ever had was mushrooms, and it was unbelievable. It saved my life, completely altered my perspective on reality, opened my mind to the sheer expansiveness and mystical nature and beauty of existence. And it just sent me on this incredible journey of self-discovery that spanned 4 or 5 years or however long, and I'm still going now. um I mean, you know, uh it depends on how much experience the individual has. Is this the first time doing any psychedelic? Or is it the first time just doing mushrooms but with other experience in the past? Is it going to be in combination with cannabis or anything else? You know? Um, I mean, just a pretty safe estimate is like 2.5 grams, probably 2.5 grams dried. And that would be Liberty caps, which are a very potent, I think the most potent strain of mushroom. So you could maybe do 3 grams if you were using a less potent strain of mushroom, I suppose. But you know, I'm not encouraging anyone to break any laws, obviously. only if it's safe and legal to do so. This is Twitch television. I'm not here to violate the terms of service. But at the same time, education is important. But I took 2.5 grams for my first trip, and it wasn't a breakthrough. It was a very enjoyable experience, and it gave me the reassurance that I had found the Philosopher's Stone, and that it was time to take the heroic dose. It was just an immediate knowing of like, okay, I can heal myself with this. Exactly. And 2.5 grams, I was just listening to a lot of psychedelic trance at the time, and I remember I must have danced for hours and hours, and had these beautiful open eye visuals where all of the walls and everything looked like they were rivers of jewels, just like all these crystals like flowing across the walls. And then I would see like a crystalline alligator like swimming through the crystal lake in the wall, you know. And I remember looking at all of this beautiful imagery, these hallucinations, and thinking, this is like nothing I've ever seen before, but it's so familiar. It's like it's always been there, but I just couldn't see it. Very strange. No, it was a few years later, 2 or 3 years later, I think, that I did another heroic dose of mushrooms, and it also happened during an acid trip that I can recall as well, where I had the Nirvana experience, and I went to this sort of infinite plane of golden light, and it was like I had arrived somewhere. No, it wasn't like I'd arrived, it was like I'd set myself free, and I was just soaring through this infinite expanse of golden light, and I was completely free, and it was as if I had the sense that my entire life's work was complete, and I could hear these voices. Well, in the first instance that this happened, the first ever Nirvana experience I had, which was a heroic dose of mushrooms done about 2 days after a breakthrough dose of dimethyltryptamine. And I arrived in this golden plane, and I could hear all of these voices saying like, keep going, we're waiting for you, come on, come on. And I had a distinct sense that I was standing on the edge of like the intersection between life and death, and I had a strong sense that I could consciously choose to die at that moment and basically ascend or something. and it was a very appealing idea to just let go and be free forever. But I always do a grounding ritual before my trips where I will sit there and I will like say, okay, no matter how far out I go, I will return and I will bring as much back as I can. You know, all of that kind of stuff. I go through a lot of like mental preparation generally before dosing, and part of that will be like, I'm coming back. I'm setting my intention. I'll go right the way to the other side, but I'm coming back. And so I remembered that at the time. I remembered like, well, no, I decided that I'm gonna go back. And then I did. It's like they let me go again. They were like, okay, if that's what you want to do. Yeah. And I remember coming back and thinking like, well, I did it. Now all I have to really do is Hopefully try to help some other people do the same in their lifetime as well. Um, yeah. And I can remember sitting there, I was sitting on the floor, and I remember saying, I'm the Messiah. But not like in an egotistical way, like I'm better than everybody, I'm a god or something. No, it was more like I just realized who I am and who everyone is. I truly believe everyone's the Buddha, everyone's God, everyone's the Messiah. You know, you're me and I'm you. It's all one consciousness. And I remember my friend was upstairs, and he, you know, we were a few of us tripped over a few days, and we were all looking after each other, making sure everyone was okay through their experiences. So he was upstairs, I was in a quiet room downstairs, and I remember when I came back to my senses and I was like back in the room, I remember thinking like, oh, I can go upstairs and see Joe now. And I remember thinking, Joe's just me in a different incarnation. Joe's just me from a different perspective. There was no longer any separation or distinction between myself and other beings. Just one universal family of beings, one infinite consciousness. And I just burst out laughing. It was just hilarious. This idea that like I can run upstairs and see myself. There I am, you know? Oh man. It was good. That was a great trip, yeah. I mean, it was a whole unfoldment. It was a conversation, and the conversation kept going actually for like a telepathic communication with the mushrooms. I went upstairs and it was just me and him for a while, and then someone else showed up later on, and there were three of us in the room talking about whatever video games and stuff. But there was like a fourth person for me, not for those guys, but for me, the mushrooms were also there, and they would talk with me about everything that we were talking about. They were talking with me about it, and it was a continuation from like this was happening from the very early stages of the trip, because they were telling me things like I just recently met my stepsister for the first time, new stepsister, and and I remember like it revealed to me how I actually felt about meeting this person, and how I would actually have behaved in that moment if I wasn't so inhibited by all of my own anxiety and depression and all of this egoic baggage that I'm constantly carrying around with me. It just revealed to me, like, it said she was lovely, wasn't she? And I just started crying. I was like, she was amazing. She's so lovely. She's such a warm, beautiful person. You know, it was just a privilege to meet this person. And it was like, this is how I'm actually supposed to feel about being alive and connecting with people. This is what it's supposed to feel like to embrace one another and to be present with one another is just an unbelievable gift. And yet we just sort of sleepwalk through life in a sort of state of sedentary misery and angst, and or at least I did. I was an asshole. Okay, it took me a long time. I'm still not exactly 100, you know. I'm still working on myself, but I've come a long way. I was really messed up at that point, and it just showed me like that. Well, this is how you actually feel about this person. That was one of the first things that it told me in the whole experience. And then getting beyond that, you know, now I'm crying, now I'm emotional and everything, and then it starts reminding me of things like, so this is the earth, this is you, this is everything that you're doing. This is like the entire history of the earth has unfolded. Civilizations have risen and fallen. There's all of these huge wars. I was seeing these like gladiatorial battles or these medieval battles and stuff. And it was saying like, this is all you. These are all the lives that you've lived. This is all your creation, and everything has led up to this point of awakening right now. It's you've done all of this. It's all happened so that you can finally arrive at this experience that you're about to have right now. And I was like, holy shit, that it's that okay, that's who I am. It was like, oh, so that's who I am, and that's what I'm doing. Now I remember. And it was just it just stripped away the ego completely. It was like, you're not who you think you are. Those are just ideas. This is what you actually are. You're one with everything. You're alive. And that was a huge revelation. And then from there it just continued unfolding until I found myself arriving on the shores of Nirvana, basically. And everyone was like, hey, you made it, yes. And I was like, oh, I've done it, I'm free. Oh my god. And that was crazy. I could hear Alan Watts, and I could hear Terence McKenna, and I could hear the Buddha, and I could hear God. I could hear everyone who's ever gone before, like thousands of voices all combined into one, and they were like, keep going, come on, we're waiting for you. That was really something. Yes, yeah, cannabis is quite a good one. I think it's really good if you can do it in combination with some meditation and some exercise and some good stuff like that. A little bit of creativity, a little bit of artistic expression, you know. I mean, I had some really intense cannabis experiences in the beginning, definitely, like psychedelic level experiences for sure. Um, but now cannabis is like, uh, it barely has an effect on my consciousness. It's mostly just about like appetite and pain relief and sleep and recovery from exercise and stuff like that. I don't like doesn't affect me like it used to at all. And but it is great for potentiating trips. Yes, that's there's very few of my trips. Uh, there were very few of my trips where I didn't also vaporize cannabis or eat edible cannabis at the same time to try and uh, increase to intensify everything as much as possible. I mean, that's just typical Flames, right? He's always pushing the limits. But that's what I would do. You know, I would get like an hour into an acid trip, and like everything's starting to get weird, and things are starting to move and shift and stuff. And then I'd be like, okay, pack a bowl, pack the vape, and just keep hitting this until things get really, really fucking strange. And I mean, that'll take you to some places. I'll tell you what. And I mean, oh man, there was a guy that I met whilst I was at ESA, and we got talking. Were both rhythm game players, and we got talking about rhythm games and stuff. And he was he was talking about how do you break through plateaus. And I was like, well, sometimes I plateau for a while, and then I just drop acid and try and push through it, try and like ascend to the next level, you know. He was like, well, how does that work out for you? Is that like, is that predictable? Can you guarantee outcomes with that? I was like, no, I can't guarantee outcomes. uh I mean, I'm not going to say you can ever predict what's going to happen in a trip. You can't, but I can at least guarantee that I'll be able to like communicate with you, and I'll still be able to physically operate and stuff generally in trips now. But back then it was so unpredictable. And he was like, so does that work consistently? And I was like, no. Sometimes I drop acid and I find myself lying on the floor face down, drooling, wondering what the hell's going on. Sometimes it works though. Sometimes I get to the keyboard, I sit down, I get into the music, and I play, and it can have incredible results. You know, it's not a miracle cure or a fix. It's not a quick fix by any stretch of the imagination. This is another reason I have great respect for psychedelic musicians, because it doesn't instantly make you good at anything. But if you're already practicing something, like if you're a jiu-jitsu guy or something, you're into the jiu-jitsu, you're always rolling and sparring with people, and you're quite high level. I don't know, maybe microdose a little bit of LSD or something, you know, and it's gonna start like taking all of those connections that you've already built, and it's gonna fucking widen everything out. It's going to expand you out. It's going to make all of these cross links, like big links that from different regions of your brain to the other, which wouldn't happen before. The kind of thing that's happening in a child's brain whilst they're still learning about the world and life. They're so open to stimulus and information, and we put on the filters, we put on the blinkers, and we get stuck in these patterns of behavior. You know, we get stuck in repetitive cycles, and it becomes harder and harder to break out the longer that you let it kind of slide, if you know what I mean. And it's like a rebirth. A good dose is really like a rebirth. It's like it's like hitting the reset switch. I think Joe Rogan would say that, or defragging the hard drive or something. It is a big reset, and it also allows you to make connections that you couldn't have previously made, and understand yourself in a way that you probably never would. It's so bizarre to say to someone like, oh, you don't understand yourself. That's ridiculous. Like, right, that's so insulting to somebody, right? I mean, I'd be insulted. But I accept that I don't understand myself, that life is too much of a mystery, and that there's so much that it's like just infinite revelations, you know. It's just more and more and more, and you can always go further. There's always more to experience, I guess. And anyway, the point is, suddenly you feel like you know who you are. It's like, oh, now I remember who I am. I actually understand myself, and like why I'm here, and how I actually feel about everything. And that can it's absolutely, it's really bizarre to say that, and I'm not trying to be insulting to anyone who hasn't worked with psychedelics and done this stuff, but because we're all at exactly what stage we're at, and it's perfect wherever you're at, because that's where you're at. You couldn't possibly be anywhere else. How can you be aware of what you're not aware of? If you're not aware of it, it's not going to bother you very much, but you can become aware of it. And it's interesting to do so, to say the least. So I do highly encourage safe, legal, responsible psychedelic exploration of one's own consciousness, because it will, there is, your mind is infinite. There are entire universes, entire realms of existence inside of your very consciousness that currently you're unaware of. They reside in your subconscious, and you can dive in there. You can plunder those depths and bring back as much information about yourself as you possibly can, and not just yourself, but about the nature of reality and existence. It's all in there. All of this ancient knowledge, it's all within you. This the way that we have it all set up right now is kind of backwards. I'm not saying that there isn't great importance to having teachers and having them pass down wisdom, etc., etc., but there is a vast archive of ancient knowledge just within yourself, and if you can access it, you know, people talk about taking ayahuasca, which is an orally active form of dimethyltryptamine, which basically prolongs the DMT flash, which is a very quick, very intense experience, prolongs it to be like 10, 12, 16 hours long. So you're just fucking in there, dude, and you've got time to look around and learn things and communicate with entities and all of that good stuff. And people talk about going in there and downloading fucking millennia's worth of information. It's like you see more artwork than you've ever seen in your entire life in a second. It's such a rapid download or revealing of all of this contents of your mind. It's like it's almost like the entire sort of genetic history of every human who's ever come before you. It's like the wisdom of our elders or something. It's all in there, you know, and you can access it. And it's, I mean, you come back from something like that, it's incredible. You're like, okay, I've been to the end of time, I've seen everything. It's great. But it's super intense. It is. It is. And you know, study the sciences and learn from people and explore the world and all of that good stuff. But I truly believe in that. But the way that we have these school systems and stuff set up right now, they're not really serving people. They're not allowing people to grow and mature into who they actually are. Instead, they're schooling them into being what someone else wants them to be. It's not really a healthy approach to life, and we would have much healthier individuals running around out there, causing a muck, if we would actually nurture one another and allow one another to grow in a healthy fashion. But this is all control and manipulation and ego. This is all the like primitive sort of I don't know what to call them exactly, primitive emotions or desires or something like that, which we haven't quite grown out of yet, you know. And the fascinating thing that you find is that all of that, like getting to the top of the ladder and oppressing people and manipulating people and abusing people and exploiting people, you know, all of that material, worldly, egoic, like monsterish behavior is completely unfulfilling. And if that's all you pursue your entire life, this sort of insane power trip, this insane like descent into madness, if that's all you ever do, you'll die realizing that you've wasted your entire life and that you've only ever been just a useless sack of shit. And you've contributed nothing to human evolution. You've done nothing to help anybody. You've done nothing for the future. You've done nothing for yourself. You're just right back at the beginning. You can experience things that are so strange that it's fucking terrifying. It's so unbelievably terrifying. You think you're dying. You can even get to a place where you can't even tell if you're dead or alive anymore, because everything is so unbelievably alien. You're basically talking about you're going to experience something that you can't even imagine. Okay, imagine how strange that's going to be. You can't. That's how strange it's going to be. You can't possibly imagine what it's going to be like. And when it happens to you, it's fucking terrifying. And it's a lot of surrender and letting go of fear and being willing to die, willing to destroy yourself. And what you realize is all that you've done is destroy an illusion, an ego, a fabrication, and what you're left with once that's gone is the truth, what you really are, you know. And what you also begin to learn is that death isn't a bad thing. You'll still do everything possible to survive and thrive in life. You won't suddenly, you know, just fucking liquefy and just like I mean, if you reach that place, if you reach enlightenment and you decide it's time to ascend and that you're done and you don't really have any more earthly worldly work to do anymore, then obviously you can die at that point, I assume. Yo, what's up, One is Better? How's it going, dude? Welcome. But if you actually choose to return, then you're obviously not. But what you do learn throughout this process or this revelation or whatever is that death is not the end. Death is not a bad thing. This whole taboo and fear that we have around death is ridiculous and really damaging to how people live their lives. The first time that I broke through on DMT, that was the lesson that I got. The lesson was about attachment and fear of death. And it basically explained to me through jokes, through teasing me, how my attachment and my fear of death is nothing but a hindrance to me in life, and that I have to be completely willing to die in order to live fully. And it was such a great lesson. I mean, I've never had something it was such a great experience, you know. Well, it was really fucking strange. But it was like it was so liberating because I came back and it was like I had the weight of all of this fear and attachment that I was carrying, you know. And it was like I just took it off my shoulders, and now I was so much more free and able to live my life unhindered by my own by my own fear and attachment, you know. And it's not like you lose all rational fears. You still have a sense of self-preservation and all of that, but irrational fear is gone, and also that sort of acceptance of death is huge. It's huge as well. That it's part of it, you know. It's part of it. It's part of it. You know? I mean, at the time, I thought that I was communicating with an alien. It wasn't until about 3 days later that I realized that that was like a version of myself that lives deep within my subconscious. And basically, I took my conscious mind all the way into the depths of my subconscious so that my highest self could explain something to my conscious mind, and then I could return with that information back to waking life or whatever. But yeah, at the time I thought that's an alien and it's gonna kill me. But later on I realized, oh, that was just an archetype, a projection of my own consciousness, you know, communicating with itself. That was pretty good. Pretty good. I mean, the way that it went down was It was really cool. So, you know, I'd listened to Terence for a long time, the whole Take the Third Toke and everything. And, well, I cleared the pipe in one toke, so there was no third toke. I just fucking annihilated myself on that first toke. It was great. Perfect technique. And I was sitting on the floor, as you know, I was in my friend's grandma's house, and this little room surrounded by all these, like, no, I haven't actually. I don't do a lot of reading. I'm more of a direct experience kind of guy. I did a lot of reading and listening and research in the beginning, in my younger years certainly, but now I'm more of a like a go and see for myself kind of guy. Much more interesting that way. I was sitting in this little room surrounded by all these ornaments and such, and there was like a cabinet, a display cabinet full of them right here, and there was a painting propped up against the wall of these red roses. And I was looking at that painting, took the first toke and the only toke, inhaled, and I remember I almost let go and I caught myself. I was like, no, hold it, hold it, hold it. Hold it for as long as you can. And suddenly this alien sensation came over me. Suddenly everything around you that seems perfectly normal is now the most alien thing you've ever experienced. You feel so strange. Everything is so strange instantly. You're like, what the fuck is going on? And then this huge fractal just kind of materialized right in front of me on this painting of the roses. And Terence McKenna would call it the chrysanthemum. And it was like a flower, like blooming in front of me. And it started to consume me, and then my entire vision started to be consumed by this, you know, geometric fractal pattern. And then I went into a trance. No, it's dimethyltryptamine. It's very different. And then I went into a trance, and this was the first time that I've ever experienced a trance, and the only time, I think. My body started acting automatically. I handed away the pipe to my assistant. I put down the lighter, and I lay myself down. And I wasn't doing this consciously. It was like my body just knew what it was supposed to do and just started doing this stuff, you know? Oh, right. Well, just try some DMT. You'll quickly understand. And so I lay myself down, and it was like I just melted. I didn't even know you could be this relaxed, you know? I just, every muscle went completely loose. I just kind of just melted on the floor. And I remember thinking, like, in that very moment, I didn't even know you could be this relaxed. This is unbelievable. I've literally released all tension from my body. I'm practically dead, but I'm not. And it was like going from wide awake to asleep to dead asleep in the space of like 10 seconds whilst remaining conscious for the entire process. So I was like in the deepest sleep that I've ever been in, whilst completely conscious still. And I was lying there, my eyes are now closed, and I'm looking around inside another dimension. I'm looking around inside my own mind, and it's like an alien environment, but it's both an environment and a being simultaneously, obviously because I'm inside my own consciousness, so it is a being, but it's also, I'm literally in there, I'm inside this space, this place now. And it's like all of these, they kind of look like bones, they also kind of look like organs, but they also kind of look like plants. It's like a hybrid of everything, just these weird kind of shapes, like curves, like and they have all these like little bits coming off them like this and stuff, and they're all interlocking in this unbelievably complex organic pattern. that is like pulsating and evolving, and they're all shifting around, and they're white and blue and red and yellow, and they're all just like going like this. It kind of looks like the contours of a map, you know, when you look at the heights represented on a map by all of those squiggly lines and stuff. And but it was just, you know, it was going, and I was like, what is happening? What is going on right now was probably my primary concern at that point in time. I still felt completely myself. I still felt perfectly like, okay, I'm still me, but I'm now in a completely alien environment that I've never seen before. And it's just as vivid as this is right now. It's just as clear as I'm seeing everything right here. I was seeing this new place. And I remember a sound. It was like a metal marble on like a frosted glass surface or something, and it was rolling around my head like this, and it was going like that, so loud, like deafeningly loud. And I was like, what the hell is that? And my friend later explained to me, like a few weeks later or something, that it's the sound of the blood running through your inner ear, but normally we filter it out consciously, and basically I've just taken off the sound filter for the sound of the blood running through my ears. So I was hearing the blood circulating through my own head, basically, and it was like a fucking hydro pump system. It was so fucking loud. It was crazy, and it almost seems like impossible. Like, how is that happening right now, and I can't even hear it at all? And yet that same blood is running through my ears, and my consciousness knows how to filter out that sound so that I can hear the environment around me. That in itself is pretty mind-blowing. Anyway, so I was hearing that sound, and I was looking at this place, and then my perspective kind of looked over to the right, and there was a face staring back at me, and it was made out of all of these weird shapes and stuff, and they spiraled into two eyes and like a nose or a mouth. It was basically just a nose and two eyes made out of these spirals, and it was it was there, and I was like, oh god. It's an alien. And as soon as I fucking saw it, it lunged at me. It was red and like demonic and aggressive looking, and I was like, I'm gonna die. This is it. It's gonna kill me. I'm never gonna see anyone again. This is the end of my life. I've finally done it. And as soon as I had that thought that I'm gonna die, it recoiled and it transformed into a blue angelic creature, and it started laughing at me, and it was teasing me, and it was saying, you have attachment, you're afraid to die, you're inseparable from the universe, from eternity. You've lived and died an infinite number of times. You're one with the indestructible foundation of reality. You cannot die. This fear, this attachment that you have, is absolutely unnecessary and does not serve you in life whatsoever. There's no reason for it. All it is doing is slowing you down, getting in your way. It was somehow telling me all of this by just laughing at me. And it took me, I didn't get it immediately at all. It recoiled, and it was laughing, and it was teasing me. And I was like, what is happening? What the hell does any of this mean? And then it lunged at me again, and I was like, whoa, it's gonna kill me. And then it repeated the same process. It transformed again, and it starts laughing, and it says, you still have some attachment. You're still a bit afraid. And I was like, well, yeah, okay, you got me again, but I was a bit less scared than the first time, wasn't I? Right? And then it did it again, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna die. Oh, and it kept repeating this process until what? I think I already banned them if it's that person before. I don't know. But it repeated this process. It was basically a lesson in the form of a joke, in the form of an alien encounter, all taking place inside of my own mind. And it just kept going, it kept doing it until eventually, like, I pretty much had no fear of death left anymore, and we were just kind of friends at this point. I knew what it was saying to me, and then it let me go. Basically, it was like, okay, now you understand, so you can go back to Earth and carry on. and that was it. Boom, just like that, back in the room, clear as that. Everything's back to normal. I sit up, perfect control of my body. I feel great. I feel fucking amazing. The first thing I said was, give me the mushrooms. I want to eat all the mushrooms right now. We didn't do that. I waited for a couple of days. But I was ready to go. You know, I had no fear of anything anymore. I was ready to go as far as my legs would take me. You know, I was just going. It was incredible. I remember explaining it to everyone in the room. I was going, it was angelic and it was demonic and it was teasing me, and the guys were like, I think I want to try this. Oh my god. Good times. But unfortunately, those guys didn't break through, and I hope I can trip with them again someday, do some dimethyltryptamine and make sure that they do break through. Because those guys are fucking huge. So I gave them what was a breakthrough dose for me, and what I'd always been told was a breakthrough dose. And those guys didn't break through. But they were talking about pretty massive guys. Oh, it was amazing, dude. and I did some DMT not too long ago, and I couldn't break through. It had been literally since that experience. It had been years since then. And I was like, finally, I'm ready to do DMT again. And I couldn't break through. I was expecting the exact same thing. I was expecting, I'm going to hit this pipe once and fucking hit the ground and be off in another dimension. Didn't happen. I felt good. I felt really good. I had open eye hallucinations. Everything looked like a kind of like a hologram. It was all shifting and evolving. But about the simulation theory, we were kind of talking about something like this the other day. You know, I don't know if you've heard me say it before, but I sometimes say the singularity has already happened. Another way to say this, and I've heard it recently, it's a lyric in a song, and it's a really good song, it's a really great lyric as well. God waits for his unfoldment through man, right? So, and that is to say the singular and transcendental nature of reality. And that is to say there is no separation between the nirvana world and the real world. And that also is to say that truthfully, you can never go anywhere, because all that there is you. All you can ever discover and experience is yourself. So all of these infinite lives that you're living and all of these experiences that you're having, truthfully, all that's actually happening is that you're becoming aware of what's already there. So the way that I kind of visualize it is as a complete circle. So you have the Godhead, you have the singularity, you have the simulation engine. I don't know what to call it. So here's God, right? And then God creates realities and then incarnates within them to have experiences of being mortal beings, right? You and me, to have experiences of separateness, to have experiences of growth, of loss, of all of these experiences that a God can't have. It has through us, right? And then we die and we coalesce with the Godhead once again. So there is essentially one consciousness that manifests as all beings, or all beings exist within inside of it. They're inseparable from it, right? So you it's what's the simplest way to possibly describe that idea, you know, that sort of visualizing that one of the ways that I saw it during an acid trip one time, I believe it was like there was the Godhead was here, and this is obviously just probably just a way that my brain visualized this. It presented this idea to me through these visualizations or whatever. The reality is obviously probably nothing like this at all. It's just a way to understand it, right? So there was the Godhead in the middle, which was this bright golden glowing face, basically. It's a massive face. And then around the outside of it were all of these gateways into all of the various universes. And it was tiny little souls or little fragments of the Godhead were breaking off and swimming into all of these different realities to have these lives, these experiences. And then souls were dying and coming back to the Godhead again. So I think the right, well, if you know everything, and if nothing can exist outside of you, then how can you have experiences like unknowing or death or separation? You can't. In the actual matter of fact, it's not even possible to experience any of those things. It's just an illusion. It's just a game. The idea that you and I are actually separate things, in reality there is no separation. It's unobservable. It doesn't exist. But we, for the sake of the game that we're playing, we are operating in separate bodies. We're having experiences of separateness. But you can see beyond it. You can see how actually we're all part of the same thing. I don't know if I would say it was like a mandala. Exactly. I mean, maybe it kind of was. Sort of like all of the gateways into the universes were kind of like a mandala, right? Because it was like this patchwork surface around the outside with all of these portals. And there must have been hundreds of them. Yeah. I don't know if there is a set number of realities or if it's infinite, obviously. But for the sake of this visualization, there was a set number of realities. I could see a limited number of, there are exactly this many universes. But that was probably just because it's very difficult to show a monkey something that's truly infinite. I don't know if our like our kind of standard model of consciousness is actually capable of accepting things that are truly infinite or visualizing them. Can I produce or mix colors? No. No, never done that. I know some people have like synesthesia and it happens to them normally, and then some people also experience the synesthesia on psychedelics where the music will have certain colors to it and stuff like that. I mean, I have not colors. I see quite complex hallucinations. Generally speaking, they can be driven by the music or somehow related to the music at times, but not generally. Generally, I'll be listening to Grateful Dead or something, and I'm just seeing like puppies everywhere, something like that. That's not really going to the music. It's just like this music is really happy and I'm really happy, and my brain is just full of cute puppies, you know, something like that. That's a good one. What's with all these weirdos today? It's unusual. Okay, we should probably ban these ne'er-do-wells. Oh yeah, that's a good point actually. Yeah. Yeah, that's you're absolutely right. I did describe the thing as a full circle before as well, and that is exactly how I visualize it, kind of. Um, but I think the um, once you've kind of undergone the awakening process or whatever, then your spiritual life kind of becomes about maintaining a connection to God and maintaining a certain degree of openness and basically like fighting off demons that are trying to possess your mind. That's pretty much like that's where I find myself now. Like I do feel through that like first 5 year run of uh, exploring my consciousness with psychedelics, etc. I feel like I kind of fulfilled my life's purpose in that time, and then I made the choice not to ascend or whatever, or to die, and so I'm still here. And now, basically, I understand that what I'm doing is playing. It's all a form of play, and I'm trying to be 100% authentic and totally free and live in such a way that other people can, when they see my life, when they see me, they hopefully realize something something that they can apply to their own life. Like basically, if you see someone who's being completely freely themselves, they're completely uninhibited, and they're just loving life, you know, then it's almost like you realize, like, oh, I'm allowed to be myself and love life and just be totally free as well. Um, that would kind of be the idea. And as far as a personal, like my personal battle goes or whatever, it's about, you know, with the meditation, with the occasional psychedelic trip, with this sort of philosophic musing and all that shit, is just trying to maintain this connection with the divine, and and fight off any sort of invading forces that are trying to take control of me. I mean, it's not much of a fight, really. Um, I do, I do kind of feel like I have some sort of divine protection or something like that. It almost like everything's happened in such a way that it almost doesn't make sense. You know, it's like this is impossible. The amount of things that have gone right and the way that everything's worked out and stuff, like it doesn't really make sense how it could all happen like that. You know. Yo, FaZe Crim, how's it going, dude? And there's a lot of things like I should have taken some serious fucking injuries. Like I mean, I've done some stupid stuff. I've taken some nasty slams and some serious bails and shit where other guys take the same kind of slams and break half their ribs and break an arm and fucking knock themselves out, and like I just get up. It doesn't make sense. I'm not like built. I'm not like I don't even look like a sturdy individual, but I am fucking invincible. It doesn't make sense, dude. I just get up. It's like there's some force that is just, I've had just so many close calls where I should be dead, and I'm still going. Yeah, I think they can as well. I agree. I agree. There's a really great example of this, and there's infinite paths. There's a unique path for literally everyone. There's no one size fits all, or what worked for me will definitely work for you, or anything like that. Psychedelics saved my life, and I absolutely needed them. There was no way that I was going to get anywhere. I was basically ready to kill myself. Sort of late teens, early 20s. I it wasn't looking good. I just think I have a particularly thick skull. I'm just particularly stupid, a bit slow, you know, not really getting anything, uh, and it just sort of, I don't know, it just kind of showed me everything. It just kind of revealed everything that I was overlooking. It was like, oh, now I can see. It was like suddenly I had glasses on and I was a visually impaired person. It's like, oh, I can see, but now I can operate in life much more easily because I can actually see what I'm doing, which was great. That I needed that, I really did. But it's going to work differently for everybody. And there's a great documentary called Big River Man. It's an amazing movie. Highly recommend it. It's about this guy who had an abusive father. His father was a drunk and would beat him. And he realized one day he would run. He would always run from his father, but he could never get away, right? Until one day he jumped in a freezing canal, a freezing river, and he realized that this is the one place where his father won't follow him. So he just swim in a freezing river, and that's what he started to do, just swimming, because he could get away from his dad. And so he became an endurance swimmer and started doing these marathon swims. And he got it in his head one day that he's going to swim the Amazon, and he did it. He swam the fuck. He almost died. He went completely insane in the process, but he did it, and it's unbelievable to watch this fucking heroic feat. It's unbelievable. I mean, halfway through this thing, he just disappeared. He just left the film crew and disappeared in the middle of the night one time. They had no idea where the hell he was gone. They found him like a day later, naked on some beach, just staring at driftwood. You know, he had fucking flipped, dude. He was out there. Anyway, they got him back. He was drinking the whole time. Absolute savage, you know, madman. He was riddled with parasites. They were electrocuting him and trying to kill the parasites and feeding him drugs to keep him alive, basically, I guess. And he refused to drink water. He would only drink alcohol, and just absolute madman. Anyway, he did this swim. He makes it. You know, he's greeted by a crowd of thousands of people, and he gets out the water. And after completing this goal, this feat that he set out for himself, this self-appointed life's purpose that he defined for himself based on his own existence, he had a dream, and still has a dream every night when he sleeps. He dreams that he's starting the swim from the very beginning again, and he gets into the water, and as soon as he starts swimming, the river lifts him into the sky and flies him across the entire Amazon rainforest and says, "This is all yours. This is your kingdom. You're the king of the earth." And he's achieved his own personal nirvana. He's achieved his own form of perfection, where he's found peace in his own mind through his hardships and struggles. And that's what it's all about. It's going to be different for everyone. I can't tell you where you're going, okay? I'm just here to help you get along as best as I can. That's all I'm really doing. No idea where you're actually going. My experiences will be different from anyone else's. It's a totally unique path for everybody. And I just fucking love that story because, I mean, it's just incredible. And there's another guy who I react on videos and music, Dennis. Not right now, I don't. I'm not saying that I never will. I do music streams. I do just hang out and listen to music sometimes. So probably then, for sure. But there was another guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. I can probably find the podcast that I heard him on. But basically, he went into solitary confinement. I can't remember if I think he was imprisoned for a crime that he didn't commit. He was falsely persecuted, and he was either that or he exposed some, you know, government corruption or something. I can't remember the exact story. I'm really butchering this one, but it was a while ago that I listened to it. I can't quite remember the specifics. If I can at least get the guy's name, that's something, right? But anyway, he was put into solitary confinement. The guards would beat him, like, you know, fucking almost every day, to within an inch of his life. Whilst he was in there, you know, just locked in this empty box of just with nothing and no one, just violence, just endless beatings and torture. He remembered when he was younger, he read some book about this particular meditation practice or something where it involves archangels, and you focus on these archangels, and you start out by focusing on one archangel, and you keep it in mind, and you know, you have this like deity or this character, this archetype or whatever in your mind, and then you focus on another one, and then now you're trying to mindfully hold these two beings in your mind, and then there's another one, now you're trying to, and over months and months and months he goes through this thing until eventually he's got this entire hierarchy of like this one archangel, and then there's a tier of 7 of them, and then there's 11 higher archangels, and he's perfectly focused and visualizing and holding all of these archangels in mind simultaneously, and that became his discipline. That became his entire life's focus, his entire life's purpose, you know, just in solitary confinement, just trying to survive these endless beatings and just doing this meditation practice. And basically the guy achieved enlightenment just locked in a cell focusing on archangels. Like, that's incredible. He says it's probably the only reason that he survived. And you know what else he says is he's grateful for the entire experience. He calls it good karma. Everything that happened to him was exactly what needed to happen to him for him to reach enlightenment. So he's grateful for all of the punishment and abuse that he suffered through, because it lifted him to enlightenment ultimately. And that's why it's all a matter of perspective. It's all, the power is within you. It's a choice, a willingness, and that's the switch you've got to flip. We all go through really hard shit, lots of shit, some more than others, but we all go through shit, and it's how you face it. It's how you face it that counts. You can let it turn you away. You can turn your back on the light. You can turn your back on life. You can turn your back on love. Turn your back on yourself, and sort of shut down, totally give up, you know. Or you can face it all head on. You can really look, you know. Don't even blink. Don't face everything head on. Experience it all fully. Let it in. Let it tear you apart. Feel the pain. Feel it all fully. Don't run from anything ever. We're all going to experience great losses. I lost my mother to cancer at a very young age, and that was the hardest thing, being so young and not really understanding life and death and what was happening or anything like that, and the trauma that left me with, and how many years it took me to process all of that, and just some of my early psychedelic trips, things to do with processing the loss of my mother, my relationship with my father and my family, and facing death, and all. It's unbelievably difficult, but you have to, you can try and run from that stuff forever. You can try not to face it, but you absolutely have to face it. It's inescapable. You can't run forever, and in fact, the more you try to get away from it, the more it piles up. The worse everything gets, because you're not processing it. You're not actually dealing with your shit at any point. You're just trying to escape. You've got to stop trying to escape and go head on through everything. And some of those early trips for me was just crying and screaming, just screaming into the sky. It's unbelievable emotions that felt like they were literally going to rip me from limb to limb. There was so much unprocessed emotion that had built up inside of me, and I was carrying that shit around for years. It's unbelievable. I still have it. I still get these emotional outbursts at time where there's something left from whatever. I don't even know where it comes from half the time. Like, where did that come from? What was that related to? It could have been anything. God knows, but it was in there. And you've got to go through all of that stuff. You've got to go through the fear. You've got to go through all the pain, all the suffering, everything. Because when you get to the other side of that, that's when you've started to heal. You start coming out the other side, and you can start. You've cleared all of that darkness, and now you can start to see the light again, and you can start to appreciate life again. You can start to love yourself. You can start to live, and it's a total rebirth, a transformation, a healing process, and it's absolutely necessary. And of course we have an aversion to discomfort and an aversion to pain. We're naturally inclined to escape from that, to turn away from that. But I'm telling you, it doesn't go anywhere. You can't get away from it. You got to go through it. You got to go through all of it.